Hello and welcome. Welcome to the 2018 Mayor State of the City event. We are so happy to see all of you here. My name is Julie Brown Foster, and Bill Brand has invited me to be your MC this evening. I have lived in the South Bay for the past 18 years, and about 5 years ago, my husband and I bought our first home in North Redondo Beach. And we are raising two little girls, 5 and 7, who are attending a local school, Washington Elementary School, and growing up way too fast. And since my family and I have been living in Redondo Beach, we have tried to become more involved in attending city meetings and events, as well as acting an advocate for North Redondo by expanding awareness of projects that are both in the planning stages and implementation stages. We have had the joy of getting to know the people in our community and helping things actually happen in North Redondo, which is a fabulous thing. This past June, we actually had a North Redondo community event, and it was a really great event to tie the local residents and local businesses together. And I have to say, it was our current mayor, Bill Brand, a year ago, who encouraged us to get more involved in the city of Redondo Beach. He reminded us that it is the people and the community that need to pull together to work towards goals that will ultimately make Redondo Beach an even better place to live. So once again, I thank you on behalf of Bill and I for being here tonight. Your mayor, Bill Brand, has a lot to share with you in his presentation. First, he will provide a presentation, and then he will answer some questions from the question cards that some of you filled out before you came in. And this evening's presentation and answer period will last about 90 minutes. So before I hand the mic to Bill Brand, I'd like to share some information about him. He was born in Dallas, Texas. He moved to the South Bay in 1966, and as an 8-year-old boy, he took his first swim in the Seaside Lagoon and thought he was in heaven. He grew up in Palos Verdes, and although school interfered with his surfing, he managed to graduate from Palos Verdes High School. Bill moved to Redondo Beach in 1980. He attended El Camino College, our local junior college here, and he graduated from Long Beach State with a degree in chemical engineering. After college, he worked as an engineer for Fluor Corporation and became an expert in air quality control equipment for large power plants and oil refineries. He earned his MBA from USC with a concentration in finance. He has worked for the American Airlines at LAX for 39 years, where he still works as a crew chief managing activities on the tarmac. In 1998, Bill bought a house on Broadway in Redondo Beach, and he still lives there today. He became active in the Redondo politics in 2001, when the Heart of the City proposal to allow 3,000 condos on the AES site was approved. And in 2004, he co-founded the South Bay Parkland Conservancy and served as their president. It is still active 14 years later. As an activist, Bill co-authored Measure DD, which passed overwhelmingly in 2008, requiring a public vote for major upzonings like the Heart of the City project. Bill was first elected to the City Council in 2009 to represent District 2 on a slow growth platform after the passage of Measure DD. After years of grassroots efforts and multiple initiatives, Bill successfully led the effort and stopped the repowering of the AES power plant. He was re-elected to council in 2013. In response to his opposition to the oversized Center Cal Mall project proposed for King Harbor, he helped craft and campaign for Measure C, which mandated a balance between development and quality of life in the city, which passed by 58%. He was elected mayor of Redondo Beach in the same election last March for a 4-year term. And given all those accomplishments, Bill says his biggest achievement was getting married this past December 29th to a wonderful lady who loves him for just who he is and not for anything he does. So please please join me in welcoming Bill Brand, your mayor of Redondo Beach.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, everybody. Anybody got a visor? Thanks for coming. I wanted to start off by saying this is really you guys' meeting. For many, many years, I watched the mayor of Redondo Beach give a State of the City address early in the morning on a weekday, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, charged a lot of money. And I just kind of felt like that wasn't really in the spirit of reaching out to the residents and being able to share with you what's going on and what's coming. So I really appreciate you guys coming tonight, and those that support this and have supported me and are able to stand before you and give you your State of the City address at a convenient time, and it's free. So thank you. So real quick, I'm going to talk about a little bit about city government, how it works here. A lot of people don't quite understand. I'm going to touch on the budget just a little bit. And I'm going to finish with some fun news about what's coming for this year, actually. But first, I wanted to thank our staff. You know, a lot of people don't realize how many people we have working for us here in Redondo Beach, and we actually have over 400 employees, full-time and part-time, working for us in Redondo Beach. They work very hard. I mean, everything from police, fire, public works, professional supervisory personnel, the janitors, the secretaries, clerks, librarians, department heads, anybody else I've forgotten. They do a lot of work for us, and they're very dedicated to the city of Redondo Beach. So let's just start by giving our staff a big round of applause. It's good to start with that because we got to negotiate new contracts with all 6 unions by the end of June. We have 6 unions in Redondo Beach. A lot of people don't realize that. No one who works for the city is not in a union. So by the end of June, we will have negotiated 6 new contracts for all the workers in Redondo Beach. So I also want to acknowledge some of my fellow elected representatives. I don't know how many of you are here tonight, but Redondo Beach has 5 districts, and there's a city councilman elected in each district. And in District 1 is Nils Narenheim. Is Nils here tonight? Is Nils right over there? District 2 is Todd Lowenstein. District 3 is Christian Horvath. Is Christian here? I don't see him. District 4 is John Gran. There he is. And District 5, where we are right now, is Laura Emdy. There you go. We also have an elected school board. I don't know how many of them are here tonight, but it is Brad Serkin, Mike Christensen, David Whitkin, Brad Waller, and Anita Averick. Are any of them here tonight? Don't see any of them. Anyway, let's give them a round of applause. They do a lot of work. We have a couple other elected officials, Steve Deals, who's our city treasurer, Mike Webb, who's our city attorney, and Eleanor Manzano, who's our city clerk. So let's all give them a round of applause. So let's see if I know how to work this. How about that? Yeah, they're your elected officials. As I said, we're made up of 5 districts. And Redondo Beach is unusual for the local area anyway, because you have an elected mayor. Most other cities like Hermosa and Manhattan Beach, they rotate the mayor. Rancho Palos Verdes. Most cities of this size will rotate mayor. You'll have 5 council, and they'll switch every year. Redondo Beach is different. I'm elected for 4 years. And I don't actually vote on motions. I don't make motions. I kind of just organize the meetings. I can veto something if it's only a 3-2 vote, or I can break a tie if someone's absent and there's a tie. So it's an interesting system. I didn't really think a mayor was necessary in Redondo Beach when as all the years that I've been watching it. But now that I actually am the mayor and I go around and I go to the state and I go to the county and I work with other agencies, I realize how much more kind of credibility I get because I'm here for 4 years. Where if you're just kind of rotating through, yeah, they don't feel as emboldened by you if they always ask me, because they always ask me, are you elected or are you going to be gone next month? So I do see a value in that. So as far as staff go, lastly, we only have one employee, the mayor and the city council, and that's a city manager. And the city manager is the most important position in the city, and he manages basically the day-to-day operations of the city. He does all the hiring. He directs all the staff, including the police chief and the fire chief. And our current city manager, Joe Hefkin, came by at a very difficult time. It was a few years ago, and there's really poor morale in the city. It was hard to figure out how things were getting done and what you needed to do. And Joe came in and really provided that steady hand, and not only calmed the waters, he also did a great job hiring some very important key department heads. So I don't know if Joe's here tonight or not, but I'd like to see to it that Joe gets a big round of applause. So, thank you. So let's talk about the budget just for a second. Redondo Beach has an $80 million general fund budget. That's the taxes that come into the city. Our largest tax base is from property taxes. We get about $40 million, about half of it from property taxes. The next one is sales tax. We make about $10 million a year in sales tax. Right behind that is transit occupancy tax from the hotels, or bed tax. So when you go and you stay at a hotel in Redondo Beach, you'll pay 12%, and that goes right to the general fund. And we added 4 hotels in Redondo Beach in the last few years, including the new Shade Hotel on our waterfront. And just that hotel alone brings in about $500,000 to the city a year in TOT tax. So I want to thank the 4 hotels that have managed to, from the ground up, which was amazing, especially during the recessionary time that we had. It's been a big boost to us. We spend about $60 million of that $80 million on police and fire. Yeah, so that often gets people's attention. And the rest we spend on, public works, libraries, parks, that sort of thing. The vast majority of the expenses are for personnel. We have $14.5 million of that is in employee pensions, which is a huge chunk, and that's going to be going up by about $2 million a year. So that's something that any elected official, anywhere you go, they're always talking about how are we going to meet our pension obligations and that sort of thing every year. And we maintain an 8.33% reserve. That's in our city charter. And that's just something we keep in case of an emergency. But after that, there really isn't any money left over. I mean, I worked for American Airlines for 39 years, and they're always looking to maximize their earnings so that they can, trigger the options of the key executives, and then they have money left over, and they go back and buy their stock in the open market, buy it back, and so do all sorts of financing things because they make a lot of money. We're a nonprofit. We don't make any profit. Whatever we get, we basically pour back into the city and the employees that are doing the work for us. So we'll pass a new budget this coming June. At the end of June, we always have a budget done. And it's a good time, if you're interested in it now, to start getting involved and start paying attention, reading up, and seeing how it's done. Often people, you can come in in June, but it's a lot easier if you've kind of started reading about it until, instead of just showing up at the last second, it makes it more difficult. The other, one of the things that's been, what I've learned really over the years, in city government, once you have your police and fire taken care of, and there's nothing more important, right, than the police coming when you call them and the fire department showing up when you need them. And that's really the number one charge of any community, and that's public safety. And so once you have that taken care of, which we have an excellent police force, and we have an excellent fire, I would encourage anybody to go on a ride-along. They take ride-alongs with any residents. I've been on a ride-along with the police and the fire. And it is really, really cool. And it's eye-opening what they go through. But anyway, once you have the police and the fire and your libraries and your parks and the general, you have a good school district, city government comes down to land use. What are you going to allow to be built in your town? How are you going to revitalize areas like the Galleria or our waterfront? What are you going to zone things? And that kind of dictates what you allow. So, and it often drives the budget, right? So the number one land use in the city now are hotels. Because a hotel not only pays that big hefty TOT tax, they usually also have to pay property taxes, and they pay some sales tax on whatever they're doing. So that's a big money maker for the city. And some hotels actually end up paying a lease too, because we own our waterfront, and we lease that land to the Shade Hotel. So they pay a lease and they pay TOT. Second in line is successful commercial and successful retail, because we get a lot of sales tax. Like I said earlier, we get about $10 million a year in sales tax. We lost Nordstrom's. And that's probably costing us over $1 million a year right now because of the sales tax we lost related to them and the spillover of the loss in sales from the loss in business. People don't go there at Galleria as much because Nordstrom's is not there. So, and then there's the costs, as I mentioned, police, fire, public works, that sort of thing. So again, we balance our budget. It's mandated. Don't let any politician, when he's running, say, hey, I spent 8 years balancing the budget. Well, you have to balance the budget. If you don't, then you're violating the city charter. So let's talk about some upcoming projects. The Galleria needs redeveloping, needs revitalizing. Everyone knows that. It was recently sold to an Australian firm called QIC, which bought a package of Forest City malls. Forest City is the company that owned it before. And they bought a package kind of their I guess they're all malls. And this was one of them. And they came out and spoke with us, 3 guys. And a really nice gentleman met with me and the city staff and talked about, they've been working with Forest City up to now. And so there's a big project that they've spent several years working on, and the environmental impact report is about finalized, and it's going to be coming to the Planning Commission next month. And it's going to have, it's really important. And right now they're planning on 300 residential units. There are no residential units there right now, but they have the zoning. Again, they have the zoning for residential units, so they're coming with 300 apartment buildings. They're planning a new hotel there. They're actually increasing retail space. You hear about brick and mortar and everything going down and it's going all online. They're actually going to be increasing retail space. They want to build this experiential place that they think will draw a large crowd and they'll do well and the city will do well. But it's a project and it's going to the Planning Commission and there's going to be several meetings, and if you want to get engaged and have your say, now's the time to be doing it and paying attention, because the whole project's online at the city website. And when it comes to the Planning Commission, it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes. When these big projects come forward, it's really up to the appointed commissioners or the city council to assess the impacts to the community, how it's going to impact your quality of life, how it's going to impact schools, roads, traffic, parking, everything under the sun. And then they have to weigh that and decide whether or not to actually approve the project or not. So no project has to be approved. But usually what happens is there's adjustments made and they finally close in on a deal and they approve something. This project may never even come to the city council, right? The Planning Commission can approve this project. And if no one appeals it, then that'll be it and the project will be approved. So look for that one, that's a big deal. So let me go to this next slide. I'm going to step away for a second. Does anybody know what this is? How many people know what this is? Not too many of you. This is a giant body of water, right? This is where the AES power plant site is right now. This is a photo from 1908 from the Library of Congress. And what used to be there was a giant salt lake. It's actually a state landmark, number 373, if you want to look it up. But if you look along here, there's a lot of lumber stacked. Redondo has an incredibly rich history. If you look at here, there's a lot of lumber stacked up along the shoreline here. Way down there, you can't really see it, but there's an old salt works. They used to make about 10,000 pounds of salt there because this was a day, because this was a giant salt lake. And then the rail lines, these are the red car rail lines that would come in here. The Santa Fe Railway and the Redondo Railway would go out to the piers here and pick up the lumber coming in from the Pacific Northwest and then ship it into LA, and they were building LA. And this was actually the port of LA for a long time. And the reason was because of the Redondo Canyon. There's a very deep water canyon right offshore, so the big ships could come in and dock there. But that's actually one of the reasons that LA Harbor moved to Wilmington and Long Beach and San Pedro, I should say, was because of that canyon. They couldn't build a break wall over that canyon. So for many years, Redondo Beach was campaigning to make it the LA Harbor. So let's be glad they failed on that one. The rail lines, the red cars, it's such a shame we took those out. You could go from downtown LA, Figueroa, to the beach in Redondo Beach in about half an hour on the train several times a day. This is like in 1890. So it's quite a history in Redondo Beach. There's this book called The History of Redondo Beach, written by, I think his name is Van Johnson. He wrote it in 1966. It is a fascinating read, So anyway, this is what is here now, and we're all well aware of that. This plant is for sale, right? AES is actively engaged in a process with a broker, and we've learned of this. This is their second round. They came out a couple years ago and went out and didn't like the price they got, and then they came back out, and so now they're narrowing it down to a few bidders. And we saw this going, and instead of sitting back and waiting to see what happens, it's about 50 acres, by the way. Let me just say this, before I don't say anything tonight, there isn't going to be a new power plant there. And that was not an easy, that's a whole nother story, but that was not an easy accomplishment for this city, and it wasn't just me, it was our city attorney, it was a lot of residents, it was a team effort, believe me, because they did want to put a new plant here. And El Segundo got one, Huntington Beach is getting one, Los Alamitos is getting one. And we made sure we didn't, and so that's a big win there. So anyway, what eventually happens here is going to be up to the community because of Measure DD, which passed back in 2008. It's only zoned for a park and a public utility. So if somebody buys it and they want to do something, they're going to have to get a zoning change, and that zoning change is going to have to come to the residents. So the residents don't have to approve anything. But they're going to be coming, and you want to revitalize it, and something's got to happen. But feel no obligation, regardless of how much anybody paid for it, to hand over a large development project. I see this as a park plan with a small development project or some development on it, not a big development plan with some park in it. So it's going to be interesting. So instead of sitting back and watching this unfold, we got with the county, and Janice Hahn, who's your new county supervisor here, and decided that we wanted to make a bid on it and find a way to cabal the money together and be an active bidder on this site and truly make it a public amenity with a development plan on it that kicks some money back to the city as well as to the county. So with the support of Janice Hahn and the entire city council and the state, we formed this partnership that is catching up. We're a little behind all the other bidders, but we're catching up, and we're hoping to have a solid bid for them after we do some more of our due diligence that is competitive with the others. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be very interesting. But don't be surprised if AES just announces one day that they've sold it to some firm you've never even heard of before. Kind of like what happened with the Galleria, right? All of a sudden, boom, Galleria is sold to QIC. Who's QIC? You know, AES Power Plant. Boom, sold to Acme Development Company in Chicago. But whoever it is will have to work with the community and come up with a plan that is, works with the community, doesn't create too many impacts, but also provides a good return to them so that they get going and get something done. So we'll see how that goes. And this June, one of the things that could help us a lot, this June there's a measure on the ballot. It started off as a Senate Bill 5, and now I think it's Measure 67 or something. I forgot what number it is. But there's millions of dollars in that for restoration of this sort of site. So the state is helping, the county will help. I've always said we can't do this on our own. So it's going to be a partnership eventually. And the other nice thing about there being no power plant is that those power lines are coming down. How about that? There ought to be people here from Hermosa Beach, frankly. Isn't that a lovely photo? There's actually two sets of power lines, two towers of 220 kV and then 64 kV. Those lines go all the way east of the 405 freeway. And one set of lines goes in there simply to start the power plant, if you can believe that. So anyway, we've been meeting with Southern California Edison, or we had our first meeting. And since AES is selling it, right, they don't want any more power lines on their property. So they got with Southern California Edison and got them to perform something called a method of service study. And all they want to do is just get Edison off of their property. So they've got a switch yard on the power plant. The power lines are coming into their property. So they got with Southern California Edison to figure out what they have to do and how much it will cost to get the switch yard off their property and get the power lines off their property. So we were talking to Southern California Edison and go, well, what are you going to do with the power lines? Because the city found out a long time ago you don't need the power lines if the power plant permanently retires. We spent $10,000 or $15,000 on a consultant telling us that. But that didn't mean they were going away. So anyway, Edison said, we're just going to turn them around at Francisca. I go, what? I go, yeah, we're just going to just do the minimum, right? AES wants them off their property. They're taking them off their property, taking out the switch yard, and they're basically just going to turn them around and send them back out to La Fresia and just leave them there, the whole power corridor. And so we met with them, and he said, well, we don't want you to leave them, at least not over Redondo Beach. And they said, fine, we'll do a method of service study. We'll tell you what it's going to cost. And then we'll see about moving them. So yeah, we're in that process right now, and I see now why power lines can go away before the power plant, which happened in a couple places. In Chula Vista, I have a video of them helicoptering away the towers away from that power plant while the power plant still sat there, because sometimes that gets going sooner. So big message there. The power lines are coming down, and we're going to everybody's going to benefit. I mean, that's just going to change our whole waterfront. Let's turn out to Artesia Boulevard. Those are the two big things going on in North Redondo, the Galleria and revitalizing Artesia Boulevard. And this is something else that Council's been unanimous on, is we really, really need to pay more attention to Artesia Boulevard. It's a great corridor that's just sitting there for some love. The council and the previous mayors have spent way too much time on the waterfront. And last budget, we just decided it was time to really, really direct our monies to Artesia Boulevard. So as you can see, we allocated $500,000 just in streetscape improvements, $100,000 in a city matching program for the facade. If you own a store there and you want to clean it up and change the facade and upgrade it, the city will match it up to about $100,000. We're spending $800,000 in the park and beltway upgrades on Edison right-of-way, right adjacent to Artesia Boulevard. And we've allocated at least $100,000 to the GPAC to look at a new plan to revitalize it as well. What's the GPAC? GPAC is a General Plan Advisory Committee, and it's made up of 26 members of the community who are been meeting, I think, since last July or something. They've had several meetings, and they're going to have many more. And they're looking at the entire general plan of our city. And it's just residents. It's not elected officials, or they were appointed. But we haven't done, all cities have something called general plan, where they lay out the zoning, and they look at public safety, and they look at what they need for parks and water and all this sort of thing. So these guys got started, like I said, back in July. And they've been doing a lot of work, and we're allocating specific money for Artesia Boulevard. If you want to get involved, this is exactly a good time to do it. Go to some of the GPAC meetings, read up on the city website. They have, I think it's called Plan Redondo on the city website, and they have all the reports. It's pretty fascinating. So it's great. I commend the city council for setting the money aside for that. I argued for that for many, many years, and it's finally happening. So that's going to be interesting. And whatever they come up with is going to require, again, a public vote to rezone much of the town. So I never doubted that I mean, it's so stale. We haven't updated our general plan since 1992. So I never doubted for a second that if the community got together, and that's really what it's going to take, even for the AS plan, is for the community to get together and craft a plan, craft a zoning, craft a plan, and then by the time it gets to the ballot, everybody will understand it, and hopefully it won't be as contentious as some of these other projects that have come that really didn't come from the community. So that's, I'm excited about what's happening on Artesia Boulevard. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're definitely giving it some love. Next up, I'll touch on the Center Cal project. That'll probably come up in the questions. Obviously, that's really a quagmire. They, you know, when Measure C passed, instead of coming back to us and saying, hey, well, let's work on a plan that's more compliant with what the community wants to see, they proceeded to file 3 lawsuits. And so we're in court. 2 of the suits are going to have a preliminary ruling next month. I won't go into the details of it all. I'm sure there's some questions there. But regardless of what the rulings are next month, they're probably both going to get appealed. So this court battle will go on for a long time. They're also, though, going before the Coastal Commission because the project itself was passed by the Harbor Commission, nearly got through the City Council, and it would have been approved if not appealed to the Coastal Commission. So I'm happy to say I was one of the appellants to the Coastal Commission. And so the Coastal Commission were ultimately going to have the final say on this project. Again, dependent on the various litigation going on. But they'll probably be hearing this project in June. It's my guess right now. So as unbelievable as this may sound to many of you, that project could still happen. So they could get approved by the Coastal Commission, the lawsuits could all go in their favor, and they would have entitlements, and they could start moving on that project, regardless of the wishes of the community. So I'd be the first one to say they had 8 public workshops, some of them right here out in the foyer, when they were crafting this plan, and it started off good. I mean, I didn't vote for them, but hey, they're here, and they're going to do a plan and a project, and they're going to work with us. And we started coming to these workshops, and by about the 5th or 6th workshop, it was clear that they weren't listening to what they were hearing in the community. So every developer will tell you they're going to go and talk to the community, and they're going to listen to the community. But there's a big leap from listening to the community and implementing what you heard. And we figured out, it took us a little while, and we're taking a lot of our valuable time. Towards the end, we realized that they're not implementing what we've been telling them. They're, changing the plans in exactly the opposite direction of what we wanted to see. And people were getting angry. And by the 8th meeting, they saw the anger, and they wouldn't even take public comment. This is their public meeting, the last meeting when they're rolling out the project, and they're not taking public comment because people were pretty hot. So anyway, we'll see what happens. And starting next month, as I said, we'll get some ruling. But again, it'll probably be appealed, and the next step will probably be the Coastal Commission. So the next slide, this is interesting. I got this envelope in the mail last Friday. It's addressed to Assembly Member Al Miritsuchi, and it's got my return address on it. And it says, return to sender. And I'm looking at this, I didn't send this to Al Miritsuchi. But whatever address they used was no longer any good, so they sent it back to me. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. I look at it and I go, what is this? They sent him some stuff about self-driving cars and about his big position on vehicle registration renewal notices and what Al should be doing to lobby for these issues. And I show this because there's so much information out there now. So much, I would say most of it's inaccurate. There's a lot of trickery going on out there. You have to be extremely careful about what you read and the conclusions you draw now. I mean, those of us who are older, I mean, we used to be able to turn on the news and think that, okay, well, this is probably true, right? Or you'd read an article in the paper and you'd say, okay, well, this is probably true. You watch CNN and you go, well, that's the news, you know, and you can trust it to a large extent. You just can't do that anymore. And people are doing, I mean, I think this is mail fraud. I'm not sure, but people don't care anymore. You know, even if it is mail fraud, they probably will never get caught or so. I guess my point is, with all the social media out there, whatever it is, there's just something new every day. If you're going to be intelligent and engaged and know what to do and who to vote for and everything, it takes more work than it used to be. And be very careful about what you read or what people tell you or about issues or other individuals. You kind of got to figure it out for yourself, and you can't just rely on one source. So, yeah, I just want to make sure people. And there's PR firms. There's this company called Sorrell Associates that works in LA, and they have big clients. Their clients are AES, Centercal, Legato, and they go out into communities and they craft a message for you to support their project. And they make a lot of money doing it. And they do a lot of different things. It would amaze you. They do things like this. They probably, they wouldn't do this because this is mail fraud, I think. But they could do things that, could throw you off. So you have to be very careful when these projects are moving through, follow the money, that old saying. So getting to something more positive, there's some really cool things coming up in 2018. And one of the coolest things is this 3-day music festival that they're going to have down in King Harbor, down by the Seaside Lagoon and that whole parking lot. He's going to close that whole area and have a 3-day musical festival with some big acts. He told me not to mention any names, Steve Miller, but he was talking about some other acts that you would definitely get your attention. And the date isn't set, but it's probably going to be in late September, early October. It's put on by a gentleman by the name of oh God, I'm drawing a blank here. I'll think of it in Alan Sanford, sorry, Alan. Alan Sanford came to me in the spring and he goes, Bill, it's time for something like this for Redondo Beach. He's been a concert producer. He owns St. Rock. He's a restaurateur, and he's a South Bay person through and through. And he decided to really stick his neck out. And he's worked with our public safety, police, fire. He's going through all the processes. He's not quite done yet. But he really believes in this community, he really believes in the waterfront, and he believes in Redondo Beach. And he's forming this project, and it's going to be really cool. It's going to really ignite that area, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So we'll see about that. The other thing, I know most of you know, the Olympics are coming in 2028. How many of you were here in the '84 Olympics? Wow, a lot of you. Yeah, I was here and went to the events with my parents and brothers and sisters, and it's a lot of fun. But I noticed that there were no Olympic events in the South Bay, right? There was nothing. It's like we didn't exist. And so when I heard that they were coming to LA in 2028 and I got elected mayor, I was like, well, I was scratching my head. I go, it doesn't look like there's any events in Redondo Beach. And, but I'm busy, you got so many things going on when you're an elected official, whether you're a council or you're mayor, and people are hitting you with all kinds of things. And, I wanted to work on that. I wasn't quite sure what to do. And I got this email from this resident, Ilya Klinger, who'd done all this work on the Olympics. He's become like an expert on the Olympics, where the events are, the ticket sales, how many people are going to show up, the daily attendance, the parking you're going to need, how you craft all these things. And he had this idea that Redondo Beach could get water polo. And he already made a presentation. And he sent me the presentation. He talked about all this things. It was fantastic. And then I started scratching my head and go, well, what about open water swimming? Because I've been a big swimmer, and there is nowhere. And they have this race in the Olympics, open water swimming, marathon swimming, whatever they call it. They swim 6.2 miles in the ocean. It usually takes them a couple hours, I think. But it's like a marathon of swimming. And there is nowhere in LA better for it than right here from King Harbor down to Palos Verdes and back. You got this huge viewing area for the public, elevated. And I noticed that they had it in Long Beach. And I'm thinking, Long Beach? Inside the harbor? All you're going to see are like arms flying in the air. You're not even going to be able to see it. So I go, we got to go see if we can get water polo and open water swimming. So we put together these presentations, and I went down and met with Eric Garcetti, and he hooked me up with this Casey Wasserman. I don't know if you guys heard of him, but he's basically kind of the chairman of the LA 28 committee. We had a conference call, and we sent him our presentations, and he liked what we were doing, and he goes, you know, I think, you know, this could work, and you guys need to get with our team. They have a LA 28 team that is actually a private company that's doing all this. They're organizing the venues and all the sports, and we're like, okay. We just every step of the way, I was like, I just want another meeting. You go to Eric Garcetti, can I get another meeting? Yeah, you get another meeting with Casey. Casey, can I get another meeting? Yeah, you get another meeting. So we went through this series of meetings to just get in the room, right? We just got to get in the room. And we thought, well, we'll make a video of the open water swimming. That'll be cool. And then I found out that we have a lot of Olympic athletes in the South Bay, right? And coaches and everything. And I forgot how I met Rebecca Sony and Caroline Burkle, but they're Olympic swimmers. Rebecca Sony is a house on Avenue G. She won 3 gold medals and 3 silver medals in the Beijing Olympics. And in breaststroke, she's going to kill me. Anyway, still holds a world record, I think. And so they're all cranked up, and they're always swimming down there, and I'm always swimming down. So we made a really cool video, and eventually went and showed it to them. And let me just say, we knew that these things were in Long Beach already, but, you know, kudos to Ilya and others who just said, you know, we're not stopping there. We don't care that it's in Long Beach. This is a better spot. And what we learned from them, and we met with them last week, myself, Councilmember Gran, and Councilmember Narenheim, we formed a subcommittee. And we went with about 8 other people in our staff, and Ilya and Rick Crump, who runs the Redondo Beach Triathlon, and they invited us down, and we had a big meeting down in their offices in LA. It was really cool what these guys are doing, and they rolled out their whole team from top to bottom, and they really, really liked what they saw in Redondo Beach. They loved the enthusiasm. They called us the quintessential beach town. They said, but whether we get you any events or not doesn't really matter. You're going to be in the mix, because there's all these federations, there's press corps, there's countries with contingencies, and that, you know, we want to cite at least some of that in Redondo Beach, because you've got the parking, you got the hotels, you got the venue, and they said, actually, even if you don't get to sports, you might do better with the benefits of everybody coming down there and having to have the expense and the disruption of the sports. But really what kicked it all off was Ilya's enthusiasm, which grew into mine and our staff's and the other council members. So we made this video. I want to show you this video. It was really fun to make. When we went and met with them, they said, well, you know, Long Beach already has these events, and they explained how they spread out the Olympics in clusters. So the Stub Hub in Carson is going to be a cluster of events. They have a cluster of events in Long Beach. And the reason they do it that way is because of security and expense. You have a lot of different federations and activities and infrastructure that go into events, and the press and the television coverage, that it really is not efficient to spread everything out everywhere. So they put them in these clusters, and the actual venues for the sport often take a back seat. But we still think Redondo Beach is the best for open water swimming, so we're still going to be pushing for it. But regardless, we've built a great relationship with them, and we're going to form a citizens committee of more subject matter experts, because we know there's a lot of people in Redondo Beach who are, you know, in the press corps. They're athletes, and they know how the Olympics work, and they can help with us and work closely with them. So anyway, here's a cool video we made that I wanted to show you guys.
Hi, I'm Caroline Burkle.
Hey, I'm Rebecca Sony, and we were Olympic swimming teammates back in 2008. From Beijing to Redondo Beach, we're here to support Redondo Beach as the venue for open water swimming in LA 2028.
We've got the town, we've got the tradition, and this is the perfect spot for LA 2028 Olympic swimming.
Hi, my name's Bill Brand. I'm the mayor of Redondo Beach. I'm here today to talk to you about what a great venue we have for the open water swim in the 2028 Olympics here in Los Angeles. The open water swim is a 6.2-mile open water swim, and we're thinking from King Harbor down to Palos Verdes and back. There is no better venue. We have elevated viewing for the public the entire distance of the course. The water's clean, the air's clean. We have the town, we have the tradition, we have great people here. We're fun-loving, easygoing, welcoming, and we're going to make sure everybody has a good time. like I tell everybody, if we don't get them, we either do or we don't. We're having a fun time trying. So. And those are not sharks, by the way. And somebody looked at that. Everybody knows it's dolphins, right? But somebody wasn't from around here, and he's looking at it. He's an expert on media relations, and he looks at me and goes, "Those weren't sharks, were they?" And I started thinking, I was like, yeah, I guess you might think they're sharks if you didn't know any better. Anyway, I want to kind of wrap this up and start taking your questions. And I guess I wanted to wrap up by saying being involved in these local issues is a lot of fun. You learn a lot, you gain confidence, knowledge about how things happen. We're all less anxious when we know why things are happening and understand what we can do about it. It's often that things are only out of our control because we don't take control. And for a lot of reasons, but they really are in our control. And I'm hoping to inspire people to get more involved. There's a lot of ways to get involved here in Redondo Beach. We have 20 commissions. Often people have gotten involved and gained a better understanding of city affairs just by getting on a commission. Some of them meet every once a month, some of them meet every 2 months. But it's a great way to get your feet wet. And we appoint commissioners every July. And you end up having a lot of fun. There's a lot of ways to be better informed, read, as I was saying, read the reports, the articles, editorials, go to meetings. All our council meetings are live streamed online. But in general, just helping improve your local community gives you a sense of purpose, gratification that you're not just working for yourself, but for future generations. So many thanks to everyone who's put me up here with me here tonight. You've given me the strength to come up here and do this. I really couldn't have done it without the support, and all of you know who you are over many years. I talk to you all the time, whether Sheila's bringing the cookies or, Leslie's writing the cards out, or, it's just a team effort. And I just got kind of anointed the leader a long time ago. But it's a lot of fun, and you make lifelong friends. And that's what really has made this a lot of fun. So don't hesitate if you've got some time and you want to get involved. It really is very rewarding. So with that, I'm going to take some thanks for coming, you guys. I'm going to take some questions. But if ever you have a question, you can email your council members. You can email me, bill.brand@redondo.org. Call me on my cell phone, 310-809-4405. And probably the best way to get me, though, is email, because I read all those and I try to answer to them. So Julie is going to come and answer the questions. First, I want to thank Julie for doing this. Let's give her a round of applause. Like I was saying, it's a big family up here. So we'll just sit down and take some questions. This is like Joe Biden. When I came to see Joe Biden, I said, here, let's discuss this. Anyway.
Thank you for that great presentation full of wonderful information.
Was that half an hour?
So we have some questions from our audience. The first question, are you ready? Drink some water. When will a schedule of the citywide street rehab be posted on the city website?
A what? Street rehab?
Street rehab.
Well, that's a good question, but I will say this. We had a great meeting a few meetings ago where a professional came and talked about the conditions of all our streets all over Redondo Beach and how they were graded. They have a machine that goes all around on every street and spits out the results of the quality of the street and which ones are in very poor shape or which ones are in excellent shape. And there is a report that's already online, so you have to flesh it out a little bit. But it was a meeting in, I believe it was in December, maybe it was in January, maybe it was last month. But often the way you find that information is you just go to an old city meeting and you click on the agenda item and all that material's there. So again, if somebody wants that information, they really should email their city councilman or myself and say, hey, where's this information? Because it's actually an easy answer. There's a link to that report. And it was fascinating. I've been on the council for 8 years. I had never seen, such a thorough explanation of how they decide where to repave the streets.
Okay, wonderful. What's the confusion about the next city election?
Oh, geez. I've written many editorials over the years, and I wrote another one about that. And I sent it to the Easy Reader, and I saw Kevin Cody the other day. He goes, Bill, that was just too wonky, man. Nobody's going to understand that. So it's a long story, but to make it brief, the state passed a law that requires us to align our elections in even-numbered years. Well, in our charter, it says it has to be an odd number of years. So we're a charter city, and we had to move them to even-numbered years. And the council voted to extend their own terms by a year to align them. And I didn't think that was right. I thought that, you know, this is Redondo Beach, not Zimbabwe. And I'm not Robert Mugabe, so I'm not going to extend my terms a year. So I vetoed it. And I said, let's come back and figure out what to do. And I couldn't get it back on the agenda. And the deadline was January 1st, so we've blown the deadline, and we're kind of in limbo here. I don't really don't know when our next legal election is going to be. Because if you try to have it next March, you'll be violating state law. And if you just try to align yourselves like they did, well, then you need to have a charter vote, because to change your charter, you got to have a public vote. So it's very contentious, and it's still contentious, and we're trying to get a discussion going. But we can't even get a discussion going yet. So, but there's work going on behind the scenes, and something will happen, and there will be another election.
Okay, thank you.
I can't answer that question.
Next question. Is Molly D being considered for the boat ramp? And why not put it where Polly's Pier is?
Yeah, Mole B is definitely our application to the Coastal Commission for the boat ramp. I did vote for it. I think it's an unsafe location, as does every other safety professional down there. But it's going to the Coastal Commission, and they'll be weighing it. But we're also having workshops coming up. I wish I had the dates on the top of my head, but they're very soon. And we're looking at different areas in the harbor about where to put a boat ramp. The Center Cal project had it on Mole C, and I didn't think that was the best place, but I think most people were agreeing that it would work, but it ended up on Mole B. That's another long story. But yes, right now it's headed to the Coastal Commission for Mole B, and but at the same time the city's studying some other locations to be determined.
Great. What can Redondo do to encourage co-working companies such as WeWork to consider our city for their next expansion?
Which company? I didn't catch.
WeWork?
WeWork? I don't know. WeWork for?
Yeah, it's co-working companies such as WeWork to consider our city for the next expansion.
Well, if that's office space, I'm all for that. Something I didn't touch on really, and I forgot to, is they're doing the Green Line extension, right? They're working right now on extending the Green Line from the Marine Avenue to a Torrance Transit Center, and it's going to go through Redondo Beach. And so this kind of goes into that because the Galleria, the state laws, there's this idea up at the state that we're not building enough housing. And Redondo Beach does not have enough housing. Nowhere in the state has enough housing. And so what we found out, though, really, and the GPAC found this out, that 90% of residents leave their home in Redondo to go to work every day. And so that just stresses the traffic infrastructure. And so they're looking at extending the Green Line, which could help with that. But if they're just going to add housing on the Green Line, then that's just going to make that disproportionate travel worse. So what they really need to do is fix what's called this housing jobs imbalance. Like we have the housing, but we don't have the jobs, which is why so many people are hitting the road. And West LA had this problem, and they developed Silicon Beach, and they were able to reverse some of that and balance it out. And so that's really the work sharing. That's really more what we need in Redondo Beach is office space and places where people can work, as opposed to hitting the road. So it's a bit of a long answer, but really I'm all for more jobs in Redondo Beach and focusing more on that. Because you hear this term transit-oriented development, and often all people think about is, well, I guess that means just building residences along the transit. But really, it basically means balancing that housing jobs imbalance if you have one. So you can put jobs along the transit, and actually studies show that job centers along the transit increases ridership on the transit more than just more housing. Because a lot of people buy the houses, they hop in their car anyway next to the transit. So that's a big deal. Yeah, so yeah, I'm much more in favor of something like that. And I'm hoping the Galleria hears that because they're building a transit center right next to the Galleria. We're spending $7 million on a transit center next to the Galleria, and that's going to start pretty soon too. So
Right past Target, is that right?
right, right. And so where the Green Line extends is really important. If anybody's got a strong interest in where the Green Line extension goes, now's the time to get involved with Metro, because they're deciding whether to run it down the existing right-of-way where the rail cars go now, or they may run it down Hawthorne Boulevard, right? So they're actually looking at that, and yeah, I'm gotten more engaged in that. It's one of the reasons I was at the Metro meeting.
Okay, thank you. Oh, this is a big question. You ready? How's married life?
How's married life? Married life is great. I'm really, really very lucky. Find the woman of my dreams late in life. It's really been fantastic. So she's out there somewhere. Need a visor. Deirdre. Yeah. We met on Match.com. Yeah, how about that? Yeah, she didn't want me to tell anybody that. She says, no, we met in the coffee shop. Yeah, but because we were on the computer. I think it's romantic, but works
Still fun to
it
be
worked
really
for
well.
us. Oh yeah, we're having fun. We're like unsupervised teenagers
Yes.
in our older days.
That's
So anyway.
wonderful. I'm sure you wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, married life's good.
Let's see, the next question is, are you giving another state of city of address?
Oh yeah, so I think I touched on it earlier. Every year the Chamber of Commerce has been giving a State of the City address, sponsoring it down at the Crown Plaza. I've been to several of those, and I'm still doing that one. What's new is this one here, where you have it in an area where the public can come and it's free and it's more convenient for them. So I'm giving 2 State of the City addresses this year. So, I mean, it's important to talk to the residents, it's important to talk to the businesses, where before I just felt like they were talking to the businesses and charging money for it.
Yes. Is the date for that, is that the February 23rd?
Honestly, I think it's the 24th, but don't quote me. Anybody know that date? 23rd.
Okay.
23rd in the morning at about 7:30 at the Crown Plaza. Thank you.
Okay. And what does Redondo need infrastructure-wise to prepare for the Olympics?
Well, it's kind of interesting talking to the Olympic Committee. They were looking for places that already have venues and already have infrastructure. So they were looking at Redondo Beach, and they see they've got the arterials coming in. You're 8 miles south of LAX. You actually have a lot of parking. They pretty much just dismissed Manhattan and Hermosa. There's nowhere for anybody to park. But we have a lot of parking, and we did some work, and we showed all the various parking spots, and you can have park and rides from other areas. So as far as infrastructure goes, though, I mean, we get the bike path coming in there. We've got the hotels on the waterfront. They love the idea that the power plant's going to be gone, and they're really zeroing in on that and how they could help with that. But as far as infrastructure, really, they could have an event right now if it was properly managed. So it depends on what unfolds, and as the relationship we've already developed with them, as we said, hey, we're here, and however you think we can help, and knowing us, we're here to work with you, and they just love that.
Wonderful. When will the South Bay have a music director for the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center?
Wow. I don't know. I didn't know we had a music director. I didn't even know. It's something to learn.
Someone would like one.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to look into that. I don't know. Is that something the city does? Hire a music director? Yeah. We used to. Mm-hmm. Oh. Mm-hmm. How long? Okay. Well, see, I learned something. So we used to have a music director, and then he probably suffered the budget cut 6 or 7 years ago during the Great Recession. No? All right. Well, we'll have to figure that one out. I can't answer that.
How is the Grand Park process coming along?
The Grand Park process?
The Grand
Oh, the
Park.
Grand Park. Grand Park.
Yes.
Grand Park. Well, I think they're referring to the AES property. I'll assume that. And the best thing I can say about that is Measure DD. Because if you didn't have Measure DD, where your city charter required a public vote, they would be coming, with a big project and selling it, and just 3 council members late at night could approve that, which is what they did with the heart of the city. But the public's voted for the park there 3 times now, and anybody who's going to work with the community to redevelop that site is definitely going to be looking at significant park space. So, yeah, after that, it's all very complicated, right? And I just think the 50,000 feet right now, it's going to be clear to anybody who buys that property that like at least half of it's going to have to be open space and something for the public. It's a big site. It's a big, incredible site, 50 acres. So, so you can do a lot of development on 20 acres, for example. So.
Well, speaking of parks, the next question is, how much money will we apply for in grants to help fund new parks?
Well, there's a lot of actually money out there. The county passed a new park bond. The state, it looks like this is going to pass. $7.5 billion clean water park, various uses around the state. So, it's one thing I learned many, many years ago when I saw these other communities getting parks like this. They all go into it with no money. They all go into it. Nobody goes and raises a bunch of money and goes, hey, let's go do something cool. They have a vision about something they want to do, and then they go find a way to pay for it. And so we've got the vision part, and we've learned the process of how you actually get the money. And coming in June, if that passes, they've already set aside roughly about $40 million for restoring a site like the AES property. It doesn't say $40 million for AES Redondo Beach, but it does say any former fossil fuel power plant site that's due to retire anytime before December 31st, 2020 is eligible for this money.
Okay.
So,
sounds pretty clear.
Yeah, well, it's a narrow field. Yeah. So the money, it's not about money. It's about vision. It's about persistence and leadership, and in a community wanting to see something like that happen. So.
Okay. And will Redondo Beach consider returning Pier Plaza Shopping Center back to its original parking lot and claim 300 parking spaces for the pier?
Well, that remains to be seen. That's part of the CenterCal project. And as I said, the CenterCal project's in litigation, and it's being appealed at the Coastal Commission, and it doesn't have support of the community. But right now, they've got a big development plan for that exact site. As I said earlier, their project could still happen, regardless of community wishes, and we'll just have to see. Turning the whole area into a giant parking lot isn't something that's been floated. Yeah, I would say, who knows? It's probably, I don't know how many of you have been up there at the top of the Pier Plaza and gone to the other side of the buildings and seen the view. It's incredible, and we definitely should maybe have some uses other than parked cars to take advantage of that view.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that was the last question. We certainly appreciate your time and all of your wonderful efforts with the city as mayor.
Has it been an hour and a half yet?
Yes.
Hour 12. Well, we got time for more questions. I'd rather just answer some questions. Is anybody not hearing it? Yeah, go ahead, yell it out.
On that site, that AES site, you could build something that's a moneymaker like tennis courts or baseball field.
Yeah, I think any kind of public amenity is going to be a mix of active and passive open space, and there's a variety of ways to generate revenue from it. If you've got a ball field, often there's clubs that come and rent it, that sort of thing. There's a lot of ways to monetize that whole site. It's always a mix. It's always a struggle to decide, are we going to charge to use the park? But our school district's done that quite a bit with some of their properties. So it's usually a balance between charging and letting people use it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a big money loser. Yeah, you're right there.
One of the Johnsons
Well, that's kind of been my vision for a long time, but most likely there'll be a mix of some sort of development to help sustain it and kick some money back to the city and county and a large public amenity. So it's really what the South Bay is missing, right, is a beautiful waterfront park. You go anywhere else, you go to San Francisco, you go to Santa Barbara, you go to Boston, you go to Vancouver, I mean, anywhere they have these beautiful waterfront parks, Millennium Park in Chicago, Central Park, I mean, they all have these beautiful parks that really become the hubbub of the community. And they increase property values. They actually increase property values. People want to live around the park. So you have to take all these things into account and rally people to understand it better, what we're talking about, and you have a much better chance. But we've been trying to get that done for 17 years. But who's counting? Yeah.
Speaking of increasing property values, is there any way we can encourage the city of Hermosa Beach, where there will be thousands of people that will benefit from what will happen there, to somehow do some buy-in on the removal of the towers?
Yeah, especially the removal of the towers, because probably more of Hermosa Beach residents are going to benefit from that than Redondo Beach residents. The view that they're going to get now is going to be huge. So that's a good thought and something to think about. You know, what's interesting is, the green belt in Hermosa, Manhattan Beach, those used to be railway right-of-ways, right? That's where the Santa Fe and the Redondo Railway used to come down. And when they decided there weren't going to be more rail cars there, unfortunately, Hermosa Beach actually floated something called a certificate of participation and bought their green belt and turned it into what it was. They added like a small tax onto their utility users tax, and they used that money to then go buy that and then turn it into what it was. And then once they're called COPs, certificates of participations, were paid off, then that was extinguished. So Manhattan, I don't quite know what Manhattan Beach did, but Redondo Beach let them build mini storage. So it's just kind of a shame, but it's not that simple because the power plant was there, and they thought putting up storage there would help buffet the noise from the power plant. So anyway, way back there.
I had a question. During the last election, over $30,000 was funneled from one developer through a different tax from the fire department that went to candidates. There was also mailers that went out that were fake groups that didn't even exist as lobbying groups in the city. And we had people acting as lobbyists but weren't registering. When is Redondo going to have some meaningful election reform?
Well, there's two subjects you're touching on there: election reform, really, and regulating who can be a lobbyist in town or not. I thought Beverly Hills had a great ordinance they passed saying who could lobby and who couldn't, and who could serve on commissions and who couldn't. And there's people on our commission, on the planning commission right now, who works for Sorrell Associates, has no business being on our planning commission. I mean, he works for all these big developers, and he's sitting on our planning commission. And so Beverly Hills and other cities have ordinances that would prevent something like that happening. What was the other part of your question? Oh, campaign finance reform. I'm all for campaign finance reform. We tried to get something passed, and nothing got through the council. It's a very complicated subject. There's 88 cities in LA County. Over half don't have any campaign finance laws. Right now in Redondo Beach, you could give a campaign a candidate unlimited amounts of money when they're running. In Hermosa Beach, I think it's $250. Can't give somebody more than $250. Over in Redondo, you could give me $10,000 to go run. So campaign finance reform is a real quagmire on how to handle it. But there's some little rules you could make, like you shouldn't be able to donate to somebody's campaign after the campaign, right? Right? Why would you give to somebody after they won? Well, we know the answer to that. They're just going to curry favor, right? Oh, well, look, he won and he's in debt. Here, let me pay that off for you. And so, they'll say there's no quid pro quo, but when they come knocking, asking for a favor, and they gave you $1,000 to help you pay down your personal debt, well, it's at a bare minimum, it looks terrible. And some cities have that where you can't donate after the campaign is over. And they limit how much you can loan yourself. A lot of people just loan themselves money right out of the gate just to get started. Other people loan themselves huge sums of money, or they spend their own money. So, but it's, you know, I'll tell you this, you don't win campaigns with money in Redondo Beach, that's for sure. Just ask AES, right? They spent over $1 million trying to get Measure B passed, just on the campaign. And the little group R4 spent like $17,000, and they won, right? So it really isn't about money. So, you know, I would warn everybody or anybody that's running or campaigning that, you know, it's really about resonating with the residents and your message and who you are and, you know, that sort of thing. Because you can send all the mailers out and flyers and the phone calls and the TV ads and the billboards. They had billboards. And it's not going to win an election. Mm-hmm. Yeah, water polo, right now water polo and open water swimming are in Long Beach because they can kind of secure that area down there west of Ocean Boulevard. There's no residences and it's much more easier to secure right now. But they don't have a pool yet. And what we did learn talking to them was that a lot of countries will go out and build all these big facilities to house these events, and then when the Olympics are over, they just become empty Taj Mahals. And so what they're looking to do now is to use existing facilities or what they call pop-up facilities. So like they can have like a pop-up aquatic center and then hold the Olympics and then take it down and return it to what it was. So they're more interested in where it's going to be and clustering these events than spending money. They're not going to spend money on new venues, it's really not as much. So right now it's slated for a parking lot in Long Beach. And what ends up happening is 10 years away. So the nice thing is we're in the mix. Everything's 10 years away. Things can change. And it's really just it's just important to be in the mix with your nose in the tent and them liking you. So triathlon and other swimming stuff. I don't remember exactly. I'm not the expert. Ilya's the expert. He could probably, there he is over there, he could probably tell you. But, you know, knowing the Olympics and where the events are, and a lot of sports don't have venues yet, like skateboarding, is like a whole nother discipline. You know, you got to become a subject matter expert on you know, everything. And luckily we got a resident who became that. So I can't answer all the questions about the Olympics by far. Anything else? Oh yeah, there's one. Yeah.
Given the state of disrepair of public safety facilities that we have at a city hall that is not exactly state of the art, is there a plan for a new updated civic center?
Right now, no. And when I was on the council many years ago, when I first got elected, we started crafting a plan to rebuild the police station right across the street on PCH. Actually, we were going to house it there for a while. We bought the building from the school district, I think for $1 million. And so we now own that building where they have some shows and things, and I think our detective bureau is there now. And we did that because we wanted to rebuild our facility. And we did an estimate, it was $40 million to rebuild a new police station. And obviously, you know, we just didn't see that the community was going to vote to spend $40 million to build a new police station. So we've spent money maintaining what we have and upgrading it a little bit and doing some upgrades. But right now, you know, we need either a new facility or a major upgrade of the one we have. And it's just something going forward that's part of public infrastructure that we really need to address that's kind of just been pushed aside. Wrongfully. This building was built in the 50s, I think. So if you go into the police station, you know, you feel it. It's the 50s. So we've got to figure something out. And we just haven't done that yet. So, by the way, we have strategic planning coming up. I forgot the date. It's next month. It's March 13th on a Tuesday. Right? Traditionally, we've had in the afternoon, late afternoon. Traditionally, it's kind of like the state of the city. Traditionally, it's been during the daytime. Starts at 8 o'clock in the morning during the week, and the public can't come. And so you just end up with the staff and the council sitting there deciding what to do with the city without the public being present. So another change I initiated was to have strategic planning at a time when the public can pay attention. So it's like at 4 in the afternoon till however long it lasts. So I really encourage people, it's the night of a normal council meeting, I guess it's an off-council meeting night, and it's coming up. And what we do at that is we decide what we're going to do for the next 6 months and next year, and we have these 3- and 5-year goals. And that way the citizens can see what we're up to, and they can give their input in what they would like to see the city focus on, and or not. And so that's really, you know, because when you see all these things happening at the city council all throughout the year, everybody's like, why are we doing that? Oh no, whose idea was that? Then, you know, it usually comes from the strategic planning, where we have a robust discussion about why would we be doing something. So, you know, you got to, it's a good way for the public to get involved. So, anyway, well, thanks for coming, you guys. That's kind of it.
Yes,
thanks for
thank
doing it.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.